Good afternoon and welcome to the Leadership Boost podcast and Sean's Leadership Mentoring. Hey, this is Sean, your host, and today we're talking about leaders know who they are. Leaders know who they are. The fact is that we're always going to have to move to something different. If you stay as you are, you're going to remain as you are for the rest of your life. You're never going to grow. You're never going to expand. If you're a leader, you are definitely moving. It's like somebody said, the more I know myself, the less I'm affected by others' opinions of me. So to grow and to develop as a leader, you're going to have to move. You're going to have to shift in position in somehow in leadership, because leadership is always progression. Leadership is always a matter of growing, developing, changing, adapting. And part of that is you've got to know who you are. You've got to be grounded and established in who you are as a leader. You have to know that and how people perceive you. So I just want to dwell on that a little bit today, because, this month we've been in America for a year. Now, we'd been here before 10, 11 years ago, but now we moved over permanently, immigrated here, and so we immigrants in Pennsylvania, USA, moved here a year ago and now permanent residents. But we moved from England after being in England, the United Kingdom, for 8 years. And of course, we're originally from South Africa. Wherever we go, we always asked, are you from Australia? Or are you from England? And we said, well, no, we're not Australian, and no, we're not from England, but yes, we are from England. It's a bit confusing. So as a family and as somebody that has had to move, continents a few times, moving city is a big change. Moving is a big change. Moving city is a big change. Moving state is quite a big change, because what we found in America is it's like every state is a different country. But moving continents is like a total culture shock. You go through an absolute change in who you are. And so now you've got to begin to establish yourself where you are. And so we moved here, went through quite a disruptive time in our lives, in our family, for a couple of months. And so January really was the kickoff point for us to actually establish our roots here now. And so a couple of things that I discovered about moving. But before I get there, let me say this to you, is that what happens is that many times we move company, we get company transfers. I've had one of those from city to city in a national corporate company in South Africa. We move countries, we get shifted. I moved from South Africa to the United States with an organization, and suddenly you're in a totally new environment. So whether it's you shifting as just a shift in country and location, or a shift in job role, which many times you've got expats moving all over the world. The thing about it is that yes, the world is like a global village. They say you've got to be thinking globally. You can't be thinking locally. You've got to be thinking globally, because we're all affected by immigrants, by other people, by knowledge, by insights, by intellectual knowledge. There's all this multiculturalism going on. There's all sorts of things happening around us in the business environment. When you're in a business environment, when you're in a leadership role, you never ever established. If you're thinking like just local, you're already thinking too small. You're thinking way beyond your potential. I mean, the incredible thing is I'm sitting here in Pennsylvania. I'm sitting in a little town called Mount Joy in rural Pennsylvania, and just moved here, still getting established. And so how do I reach my audience? How do I reach you? How do I get the message out? How do I let people know who I am, what I do? How do you get to know me, like me, trust me? And so the amazing thing is I can jump on a podcast, I can jump on a live video, and I can blog, be on a website, and I can go on LinkedIn, I can go on Facebook, I can go on Twitter, I can go on Instagram, and I can be anywhere in the world. It was amazing. The other day I had somebody pop on that was local, but I also had somebody pop on that was in the Philippines. I've had people in Germany, people in England, people in South Africa, people in Uganda, all popping on to be part of the live or the podcast. It's interesting is that I have a Facebook group, and there is nearly 1,500 members in that, and they're from all over the world. And so that's the incredible thing, that you can actually be touching, having impact anywhere on the globe. I just struggle to think locally. I just struggle to think that anything is small because we've got this global force. But having lived in Africa, traveled in Africa, lived in the United Kingdom, traveled in Europe a bit, having lived here, been to the Caribbean, what I discovered, and of course, having conversations with people all over the world via, the wonderful World Wide Web, you discover quickly that people have different cultures. That humor is different. We come to America and we discover our South African humor doesn't quite fit here. It didn't fit in England, but it was more accepted in England than here. Here is like, are you trying to offend me kind of thing, because of our South African humor. So I have to adapt to what is happening around me. What are people thinking? What are their attitudes? What I may perceive as a bad attitude may actually be just the culture. It's just what they value. It's just how they are. And so you've got to learn to adapt to that culture. I love the thing about it is, one person said, Henry Miller said this: one's destination is never a place, but rather a new way of looking at things. And so it's not a location. Having traveled to 3 continents, let me tell you something, you're up in the air discovering, where do I actually belong? And so arriving here, we've just had to put down our roots and say, I embrace this culture, I embrace this nation, I embrace the country, I embrace the people, and become part of what's going on here. Don't criticize it, and yes, you do feel like a fish out of a fishbowl. You're trying to find yourself, trying to discover how things work, but it doesn't, that takes time. But you will settle in the more you adapt to it. Of course, the beauty is both England and America, generally they speak English. Not always the English that I can understand, but they speak English, so it's easier to communicate. So if you're moving to a country that doesn't speak English, yes, it's going to be a challenge. But the thing about it is that you need to be grounded in who you are. You need to be grounded in your leadership. You need to know your measure of who you are. You need to understand what you are about. So somebody else said this, is that knowing others is being smart, knowing yourself is wisdom, leading others is strength, leading yourself is true power. The more you know about yourself, the less you are affected by the circumstances around you. And that's what we got to understand. So in leadership, if you are, now you may not be moving continents, you may not be moving culture, you may just be moving into a new company or into a new organization, into a new role. Even you could just be in another department of the organization, and suddenly you find yourself in a different culture. The team culture is different, or the organizational culture is different, the business culture is different, the city culture is different, or then you're in a totally different culture. I mean, if you're moving east, You're in a different culture altogether. And so suddenly you can feel like a fish out of water. What do? You have to be grounded. Aristotle said, knowing yourself is the beginning of wisdom. Knowing yourself is the beginning of wisdom. And so, you know, there's a difference between visiting a place and living in a place, working in a place, leading in a place. And so now you have to begin to adapt. There's some things some questions you need to ask yourself is that, you know, how do people see you? What do they experience about you? What do you want them to experience about you? What do you know your uniqueness? Do you know your strategic direction? Do you know where you are headed in your career, in your leadership? Do you know what is it that people experience when they have a encounter with you? What do you like and dislike about you? What will others say about you? Do you have a uniqueness? Is there something that differentiates you? Know that. You know, if you're trying to adapt to what people's opinions are, you're in trouble. If you're trying to come into a culture and suddenly you don't know who you are. Now, I'm not talking about imposing a culture. Imposing a culture, in other words, you come in there and you just go, you are going to have to adapt to me. That you're not going to go very far. You're going to end up leaving early. So the thing about it is to come in, learn the culture, but know who you are. And that's the thing, is that you carry a culture within you as a leader. You carry something within you. So there's certain things that describe who you are. There's certain things that make you who you are, and in your uniqueness and in your differentiation of who you are as a leader. Your mission, your vision, your values, your uniqueness. What do you stand for? What is the value that you bring? Are you confident in that? Are you settled in that? Are you aligned with that? Now you can, because I'm telling you, if you try to move into a situation and you do not understand who you are. I'm trying to look here. Somebody said, I mentioned this before, the more I know myself, the less I'm affected by others' opinions of me. And that's the thing, is you want to adapt to the culture, but you don't want to be thrown off by the opinions of others. You want to come in with that uniqueness, and you want to bring your strengths, your talents, your skills, and present that, serve that within that context, and know how to fit. But if you don't know yourself, you've got no synergy to fit. You cannot be congruent with what the culture is because you don't know yourself. And so you're going to feel insecure, uncomfortable, out of your domain, and now the whole thing begins to build an insecurity, a lack of confidence, a sense of I'm not on my beat. And people pick up that duplicity. They pick up that you don't feel like you're on your beat. You just haven't got the groove. You haven't got that groove within you. And so you've got to get back to the place of understanding that. So you know, you've got to establish yourself so that you come across as trustworthy. You come across as trustworthy. In other words, you have confidence and you have competence. You know who you are. You know what you do. You've got to have confidence and competence. Now you can fit in. If you don't have that, you cannot build trust relationships if you don't have trustworthiness. You need to understand the value that you bring. And they need to understand. So when you bring the value, they need to know how to experience that value. So when you bring value, but if you haven't got value, if you don't know your value, how are you going to bring it? And so people then feel like you are a misfit. But when you come in with confidence and competence, that you competently bring value in as a leader, they immediately feel like they can adopt you. And that's what you're looking for, is for people to adopt you into your new role. Also, you need to be consistent. Another characteristic that you've got to display as a leader. You've got to come with consistency. And so if you're not grounded in who you are, staying with what matters most, what's going to happen is you're going to be inconsistent. If you're trying to find yourself, if you don't know who you are, not grounded, you're trying to find yourself, you're trying to discover, find a place for yourself, you are inconsistent. And now people distance themselves from you. They don't know how to approach you. You always find somebody that's open-hearted and generous, but to fit into a role, to fit into your leadership role, leading a team, leading a department, leading an organization, leading a section, a unit of your organization, your company, or just starting up a new business. There's so many people going now to different parts of the world, starting their businesses, becoming entrepreneurs, traveling businesses. What do they call it? Techno nomads, is internet nomads. They travel around, do their business from all over the place, and so they just have a good time and work in the afternoons or whatever, however they spread out their time depending on how they want to do that. And so, but wherever you are is to fit in. I mean, even that is that you are connecting to a global audience. There's a virtual, when you're working with a virtual, you've got to know who you are. If you're working with a virtual team, you're talking about multiculturalism, you're talking about different time zones, you're talking about different perceptions, different attitudes, and as I said, different humor, different perspective on things. And so you've got to lead this whole organization. You've got to be grounded. Not only that, you've got to get them grounded. You've got to get everybody on the same page, but you've got to have a page. Do you have a page? You've got to get onto the page. And then lastly, you've got to have a uniqueness. As I said, there's something you've got to know that this is what I bring. This is not only my value, my consistent value, but this is something that I bring to the table. This is what I bring to the team. This is who I am. So that's what I want to share with you today, is that you've got to get grounded. Get grounded in some of those things, in your value, your uniqueness, in consistency, in what was the other ones? Forgotten now. Yes. So uniqueness, consistency, value, and your character of trustworthiness. Character is trustworthiness. Competence is your uniqueness, your value that you bring. All right, so that's what I want to share with you. Hey, listen, if you need to talk about, have a conversation about just getting grounded. What does that mean? How do I fit in? If you've taken on a new role, a new career as a business person, hey, talk to me. Let's jump onto the button over there, and it says book now. My calendar pops up. Hey, book. I love having conversations. Doesn't matter where you're on the world. We'll figure out. We do a Zoom internationally. We do a phone call locally, or maybe Zoom as well. It's a great way of talking, and we can then have a chat about just where you are in your leadership. Let's talk about it. Let's see if you need to map out any more, see where your struggles are, see where your strengths are, and how that can help you where you are right now moving forward. So hop on a call with me. Let's have a chat anytime. Hey, just book an appointment with me and let's talk about your leadership anywhere in the world. That doesn't matter. It would be great to see you grounded and moving forward and establishing yourself as a high performance leader within your organization. Great to have you with me. Thank you for listening or watching. And until next time, have a super weekend. God bless.